think it's fair to say that there's never been a time in education before where we've been forced into a situation to up-level our skills in the digital world, and we're finally seeing what the capabilities of the digital world really are. Students have accelerated, staff have accelerated, and perhaps sometimes we've been guilty of focusing on the tools over the education. I know certainly I have at points, but I think it's really important that we then take the time to reflect on what is going to make the biggest impact in our classrooms when we return at some point in the future. So I'm going to show you this, and the caveat now is that I show you this through the lens of Google because we're a Google-led school, but my assumption is that the same capabilities are available, and what I'm trying to present is not platform-specific. So please don't be thinking, oh, well, we're not Google, so we can't be doing this. It's the ideas behind what I'm going to show you that are most important. So the first thing is around sharing lesson content with students. Before a lesson, giving students access to the material that they are going to study allows them to get a bit of a head start, allows them to get a foot in the door as to where they're going today. It also allows them to develop that idea of schema. Where does today's lesson fit in the wider context? So posting lessons up for students to engage with beforehand is an absolute key, I think, to bring back into the classroom post-COVID. Once we've brought that lesson back into the classroom, we want to find some way of capturing what's happening. So we've been very good about doing that remotely, where we are either making use of visualizers, or we're annotating slides, or our lessons are recorded, but we have some way of transmitting to students our thoughts and our feelings about the lessons whilst they're being delivered. If we can find a way to capture those when we're back in the classroom, we will allow students to go back and watch lessons at key points that they lost their understanding. So as we've run through topics, possibly too quickly, students would then have the ability outside of lessons to go back with the class notes that they've taken alongside our recordings and really go over material in detail. And to really do that pause, play, that they can stop the clip, wait until they've caught up with their understanding, and then play it again. And then, if necessary, repeat and repeat and repeat. But all of this relies on us doing some simple things. It's often said that YouTube subscribers get the most hits when they work like clockwork. So if you know a video is being released every Thursday, you're more likely to engage with that channel because you know it's going to be there on a Thursday. Well, students are much the same. They won't interact with the material unless you give them a set timetable to work to. My lesson is on a Wednesday. I post the material on a Tuesday. The students know every Tuesday that work is going to be posted. And I'm assuming at this point that we've all got very good at scheduling things to go out in advance, so we don't have to actually press send at that time, but we can do so at an earlier point. The other thing that we want to give consideration to is how students are going to interact with our virtual learning environment. Don't just throw content up for the content's sake. Think about how you're going to group these things into topic areas. This allows students to go back to material not only that they've covered this week, but perhaps to go back to material that was covered a long time ago. In my A-level maths class, I group things together by topic area, so all of my differentiation topics sit together in one area. All of my sequences work sits together in another area, so students can quickly and easily pop down and access that material. And speaking of accessing material, this is great for professional development. As I've already mentioned, students can then go on to rewatch videos so that they can see those points of explanation again and again and again. But as staff, it allows us a unique way to go back and observe each other. Where we may be short on time, and where departments may not allow for easy lesson observations, by recording a lesson and watching back at a specific point, for instance here, at 17 minutes in, we're to watch this video, we're really identifying, okay, this is the point where my exposition was going on. We can then look at that as a department and say what worked, what didn't work, how can we make it better, what refinements can we make for next time. So I think the power of the lesson recording is twofold. One for the students and their development, but also one for us as staff and our professional development. Watching yourself back can sometimes be excruciating, but it's also when we learn the most. Being able to share those moments with others really does help to broaden that learning that can take place. The other piece I want to talk about is around independent work. We've got used to setting work online and receiving some form of feedback. Now, this could be a great thing moving forward if, for instance, you choose to move to a midweek hand-in session. Students can hand their work in before they get to the lesson online, so that they can then return to the lesson with you already having marked their scripts ready to move the students forward. And again, this could take different forms. It might be that, for instance, students start off with an essay plan. You've gone through new material in a lesson, the students are to go away and write an essay on that topic. But perhaps what you want to see is a short essay plan halfway through the week that lets you know that they're going to be on the right track. You could even go one step further, and in my ideas section here, I have an ideas to share document. And allow students to have communal access to the plan. What I mean here is that we post a document that all students in the class have access to, and we encourage them all to edit the same information, to create a common plan. The very best students can then go ahead and start putting that plan together. Those students that need more help can use the essay plan that has been generated by those that are more able, and everybody wins. The teacher can even see and add comments and start to adjust the format of the planning partway through the week, which is going to give you much better results when you get this work handed in. The second thing that you might want to look at is to set up seminar sessions that are student-led. We've all become very well versed in using online meetings and online meets and calendar events and so on. Encouraging students to meet up in their own time, possibly remotely, could be a really good way of kicking them on with that harder material. For instance, you may have a high ability group within your class and you want to give them something distinctly different to challenge them together. Ask them to find a common time where they could talk about this material, whether that be in school or whether that be remotely. Students could be encouraged to engage with each other at a time that's more convenient to them, rather than forcing them to do so at points in the day where perhaps their lessons don't marry up in a way that makes it accessible. The final thing I want to talk about is assessment tools. There are a great number of formative assessment tools, and I think teaching online, I've had more feedback from students than possibly I've ever had in the classroom. Sometimes asking students to complete a quick poll or to send in a quick answer has gained response from those students that you never hear from in class. But it's also given a really clear indication of whether or not my exposition has been too long, too short, not detailed enough. Looking at what formative tools we can bring back into the classroom, I think, is absolutely key. So there's a link here for 17 formative assessment tools. And again, let's try not to get hooked up in which tool works best, but it's the learning that we want to take from it. It's that taking a pause moment, getting some feedback from the students about how the teaching is going that allows you to better direct the rest of the lesson. By making it anonymous, we seem to be getting more and more feedback. Obviously, there's the use of online forms as well. These can capture more extended responses, so if you're looking to gain some feedback from students in a more summative nature after a lesson, then it will give you a very good indication as to how well teaching has gone that day. And again, it gives you an idea as to how you can craft your lesson to better meet the needs of your students. Ultimately, I think everything comes down to communication, and that's where I want to leave this. We've been forced into a situation where we're communicating with students in a vastly different way. But that's been a good thing. Students, I think, have become empowered to ask questions and to get in contact with teachers in ways that they possibly hadn't imagined before. And also, some of us have now become reliant on that contact to really progress learning in our lessons. So thinking about how we can take communication and how we can ensure students remain focused on that communication throughout the week, and see us as teachers through the week rather than just as, oh, I only have that lesson on that day, so that's the only time I get to interact with that teacher, I think will make a massive difference in terms of how students are able to better independently learn in the future. Thank you very much.
I think I was really interested in sort of the recordings from quite a CPD perspective. Um, so for me, we always say as teachers, oh my God, I'd love to see myself back and know actually what I look like in the classroom. And quite often when we're training teachers, we might do that, but we do that once. And we don't really do it again because it's a lot of hassle with the camera and with the students and bits like that. And so for CPD, I think it's an incredibly good self reflection tool. And we've started to do that at Logic, and it's been amazing of really just watching yourself back and going, did I make sense there? How clear was my explanation? So I think that can be a really nice way. My other vision of this is to develop links across curricula. As a maths teacher, I quite often have maybe computer science or business say to me, well, how do you teach percentages just because I'm going to teach it next week and I want to make it the same? Or having sort of a really good reusable video that I've planned and delivered on percentages means that's a really quick win and I can just send that out to that staff member rather than them having to maybe come and watch me and find time on our timetable. So the final one as well on that is departmental, because it immediately starts feeding conversations. As a history teacher as well, I might start, record something on answering an 8-mark source question, and then we can start collaborating on the best way to deliver that instruction. So I think really good reusable recordings could be done for cross-curricular links, but then also just ad hoc recordings to watch yourself and get better in your practice is a real strength of this.
I think in terms of students, we can also make use of the recordings moving forward. There's a great opportunity for students to be able to pre-watch recordings and also re-watch. And this could be in terms of content, but also for skills. So there might be a scenario where you are about to cover something quite challenging in class, and there's a video that you could create that will support students before the lesson. But also there might be an opportunity where you're going back to a topic and you might get students to re-watch something to help them make those connections. In a subject like history, it works quite well for skills. So if we were to create videos that help students to decode questions and guides on how to answer that question with a model, that could provide a really good connection between content, because often in history, it's the exam skill, for example, with source analysis, that can help the students to connect material.
And I think then kind of going on to the clarity of explanation as well with these pre-recorded videos, they give you sort of time to really think about how you are breaking down a topic, how you are delivering it. And I think it's time to reflect on when you need to stop talking and pause. And they can only be done now by actually thinking about your content and thinking about the misconceptions and thinking about the difficulties that students will have. So you're actually really thinking about the topic, how to chunk it, how to scaffold it, and how to deliver it. So it's not necessarily about the methods in which you deliver it. It's really about the quality of your delivery and the clarity of your explanations that students can then watch again and again and again, which is excellent.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I think also all the kind of remote meetings and whatnot we've all been using so extensively lately really lend themselves as well to more independent study. So we could have students having seminar groups, we could have students having revision sessions that are led kind of independently by them, all of which means that they don't actually have to be present on site at school, but they could be joining all of these remotely. So I think, like, tip of the iceberg stuff here, but thank you so much, ladies. Ultimately, there's so many opportunities to take forwards, and the list will only keep growing.